To Ignite the Auburn City Council candidates forum. My name is Dan Lovell. I'm the chair of the Ignite Steering Committee. And before we begin, I would like to thank the candidates here for joining us tonight. I'd also like to thank Hilton for generously hosting our event, and Greg Mono, our moderator, for donating his time and talent. The mission of Ignite is to connect people and ideas. Elections connect voters with platforms and policies, so it's a pretty good fit for us. Elections offer voters the opportunity to have a say in the governance of the community, and with that opportunity comes responsibility, which is the responsibility to be informed. On behalf of Ignite and our community, I'd like to thank each member of the audience. Your attendance and participation tonight show that you have taken your part in this election seriously. I would also be remiss if I didn't thank the members of Ignite who have helped organize tonight's event and the entire Ignite the Vote campaign. I would especially like to thank Monica Salvage, the backbone of Ignite the Vote, who has worked tirelessly on this effort from the beginning. I'd like to introduce our moderator. He's a former government reporter and editor, a good friend of mine from a long time ago. He has a master's in public administration, and he's a current PhD student at Newhouse. So please welcome Greg Mono.
What a great turnout this is. Thank you all for coming, and the enthusiasm for Ignite the Vote is reflective in the tremendous response that I got to its survey, which was circulated in advance of tonight's forum, where they solicited questions from the community, specifically from under 40 members of the community, to ask to the candidates tonight. And we'll stick mostly to those questions, but we do hope to have some time at the end for questions from all of you. I believe that there's going to be note cards available that you could write those questions down. They'll get passed up to me, and then if we have time, we can ask those additional questions of the council. Those questions, we got over 50 questions on the survey, or I should say we had to do the survey, Ignite did. They covered a tremendous amount of ground: economic growth, financial stability, the cogeneration facility, staffing of our fire departments, talent recruitment, the livability of the city, and intergovernmental collaboration and coordination. The Ignite Steering Committee worked with me to eliminate duplicate questions and combine other ones that we thought went well together. So that we have about a dozen questions to do this. We'll go through the questions one by one, giving each candidate a chance to answer in either 1 or 2 minutes, depending on the question. And we know that's not a lot of time, and hopefully the audience will take that into consideration as well. And we ask the candidates to please stick to the time on each question. We'll alternate the order in which you respond. We'll start by going from Councilor Smith to Mr. Cuddy, and then we'll reverse it, and then we'll start in the middle somewhere. We'll try to have every possible permeation of that we can. We'll pass the mic, since there is only one mic, and we ask that you speak into it for the recording that we have. I want to note that this is not a debate. This is a chance for each of you to answer the questions to the best of your ability, and for the audience to listen to those answers. We don't really want an back and forth here. We don't really have time for that in the way we've structured this. The ground rules are very simple and all relate to ensuring fairness and adequate time. Please answer the questions as directly and succinctly as possible. We have a timekeeper who is sitting right there. Please raise your hand. Who will signal you when you are nearing the end of your time. I think she's going to raise one finger when you're about halfway through your time, 2 when you're at 10 seconds left, and she'll yell time when you're finished. And please yield the floor at that time, and don't interrupt other candidates when they are speaking. Can we all agree on those? Any questions about the format? Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. So, as I said, let's start with Councilor Smith, and let's start by having each of you introduce yourselves, and in so doing, please tell us why you were running, tell us your vision for the city, and touch on one thing specifically that you would do as a member of council to help the city realize that vision. And you each have 2 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg, and I'd like to thank Ignite for giving us this opportunity to have this forum this evening, because I do think it's important that the public understands what their elected officials are supposed to do. Now, this is why I'm running for City Council. Because one, I'm realistic, and I see the realistic situation that our city is facing. We have a percentage of our city, 20%, that's on welfare. We have an increasing percentage working for the government. So when you have that combination, what's happening is the middle class is being squeezed. And they're being squeezed right out of here, going to Senate, going to Aurelius, going to Troop. Why? Because the city is not affordable. So how do you fix these problems? You fix these problems by taking them head on. You don't fix it by pension smoothing schemes. They only kick the can down the road. We see the mess in Washington. We see the mess in the state house in Albany, all because elected officials neglected their responsibilities. And that is why my children sitting in the front row here are going to have to pay for their mistakes. I, for 8 years, have never kicked a can down the road. I make decisions based on conviction, and I'll continue to do it for the next 4 years. We need to right-size our government. Bottom line, folks. We need to have a government that our taxpayers can afford. And that's what it comes down to. All right, if our taxpayers cannot afford to live here, they're going to move out of here. It's going to be a mass migration right to Senate, where they pay no property taxes. To do that, though, that means you might have to say no. You have to say no to pay increases. That means you have to look at departments that have never been touched before and say, you know what, we're going to have to cut. That means you're going to have to look at a crowd that's jam-packed in city council chambers and look at everyone in there, friends, former players, and tell them, you have to cut your job. Conviction is what we need. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor
Worship, close to 8 years. I'd like to thank the Hilton. I'd like to thank Unite organizations for sponsoring tonight's event. I would also like to thank my family, friends, and my supporters and allow me to commend my fellow candidates here. Coming into this is going to be a tough job. You're going to lose a lot of friends. Whoever gets elected to this board, you're going to have to make some really, really tough decisions. I've been a member for 8 years, a lifelong resident of the city of Auburn. I have 2 young boys, 8 and 12, both active in the community. I've become a caretaker to my 91-year-old mother. I believe this affords me a broad perspective on the issues the city faces. I've worked very hard to provide the city of Auburn with an everyday, independent, common sense approach within the city government. We have faced challenges, turned some into opportunities, and still some need to be addressed. We know that. Like most cities across upstate New York, and the challenges we face have been due to rising pension and health insurance costs. We need to get a containment on that. An unsustainable labor and intergovernment contracts. Frankly, we do not take enough revenue in to offset these deep expenditures. I look forward to having an open dialogue tonight, honest and truthful.
I don't want to just sit there. I'd like to get up and speak. My name is Chris DeAngelis. As some of you know, some of you may not, I served in elected office in the past, serving as a county legislator, a city councilor, and as mayor of the city of Auburn. I left office in 1999. When I left, I thought that the right thing to do was to allow those who were elected, chosen by the people, to do what they had to do. I had my time there. It was time for them to do what they had to without me being a thorn in their side. So now, in recent years, I've been back at City Hall. I'm chairman of the Civil Service Commission. So it's brought me back into the city government where I am closer to things, I hear things, I see things that are going on. And what really prompted me to get into this race is the fact that City is in very poor financial shape right now. According to the city manager and to some members of council, we are facing bankruptcy within a few years. That's their prediction, those are their words, not mine. I want to go to work for the city. I think I can use my experience to help us move things in a positive direction. That is my goal. That would be my goal if elected. Thank you.
Thank you for having us here tonight. Appreciate all the work that Ignite did to put this together. I know that took a lot of time and planning, and it's really important to print out something that is successful. I've got a little preface to this because my position is a little unique. I'm an employee of the city as well as a candidate. That's a little, well, so is Chris in a certain way, in a same way. I'm there full-time, and I'm honored to have the job. I've worked 13 years as city clerk. I've had the good fortune to serve as the city clerk. I've sat through over 650 city council meetings with, led by 3 different mayors, 9 different city councilors. So I've had the opportunity to get an education as well as serve the public. And I've learned about the operation of the city, the services that we provide to citizens. So I've had an education along with a job that I love. It's been an opportunity and an education. I do understand a lot about the issues facing the city. But the financial issues facing the city, and unfortunately, one of them is over the last 8 years, the poor planning and bad decisions made by our incumbents. Decisions that have resulted in services and job cuts for 2 years in a row. The failed cogen power utility project has depleted our general fund. And one of my goals would be, if I was to be elected, is to try to turn that around and get the city back on stable footing as far as the financial picture goes. And as far as the financial department goes, I'd also think that getting a comptroller back in office, or back in that position. Thank you. I'm very obedient.
I'd like to thank Dan, Monica, Greg, and Ignite for having us here tonight. Why am I running for Auburn City Council? I'm the father of a 3-year-old son. I'm the husband of an elementary school librarian. I'm a vocational teacher at Cuba Onondaga BOCES. I'm a homeowner and a taxpayer. I'm running for Auburn City Council because I'm tired of watching my city government be its own worst enemy. I see a failed energy deal that is costing the city $1 million a year. I see a council that is hostile to itself, Auburn citizens, city employees, school district, neighboring towns, and the county. I'm running for Auburn City Council because I want Auburn to have a future that is not dictated by failure. I'm running for City Council to make Auburn work again. I plan on doing this by making Auburn fiscally sound by immediately addressing the failed energy contract that is draining the city. Once we get our fiscal house in order, the council needs to display sound judgment to invest in our infrastructure. We need to follow through on our current capital improvement plan. Once our infrastructure plan is on track, we need to follow through on the comprehensive plan from 2009. Then Auburn will be a destination to attract young people and high-tech businesses. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. Terry, we're going to come right back to you with this next question and then work our way down the line. What do you see as Auburn's biggest economic driver, and what would you do to support and leverage that asset?
Well, I think our biggest economic driver or our biggest resource is the people in Auburn. I think that one of the reasons why I moved back here is because of the talent that Auburn possesses. And that talent manifests itself in the kinds of organizations like this, like Ignite. This talent manifests itself in business owners that are trying to increase their stake here in Auburn. And I think that one of the biggest resources that I would like to encourage is the creative arts. And I think that the Musical Theater Festival and what it's done to this city to bring revenue it needs to be encouraged. And I know that there's been a lot of criticism of the Musical Theater Festival as an economic engine. But if you look at downtown now, you see the businesses, you see the theater goers, you see some other kinds of things happening. I'm a part of the Auburn Regional Media Access, which is the first real public access station here in Auburn. You see what's happening at several of the other community and arts venues. I want to continue to support that and the talent that already exists here.
Yes, please pass to Ms.
The driving business.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I should have said that there's 2 minutes for this question, and I'll let all the candidates in the audience know that I shared the first question about city vision with the candidates before we started, but all these other questions are new to all of them and have not been shared with them. And we have 2 minutes for this one, and it is, what do you see as Auburn's biggest economic driver, and what would you do to support and leverage that asset?
Well, there's my opinion, and then there's the opinion of the city comprehensive plan. I brought it with me so that people could see there's a real comprehensive plan. These are not my notes for tonight. I just want to make sure you know that. I scared Chris when he saw the book. This is the comprehensive. I know I got scared when I saw that little notebook. Ooh, there's nothing on it. But in here, 12, I think it was 12 people, community members, volunteers, got together and worked with the planning department to identify the things that would drive economic success in the city. And they identified several things: the arts community, our cultural, our history, small business. We have a lot of small businesses that are already here that need to be nurtured and they need our support. We have the opportunity to give them opportunities to grow. And if we ever have a new business that wants to locate here, there's also plans on how to address that. However, I don't think this plan has been looked at in a long time. And I think that what I would do is get the plan out. And I would insist that we go through it and try to look at ways to implement the plans that they worked so hard to put together. And I think that's what we need to start doing, is work on the comprehensive plan.
Look, there's no doubt that all of the ingredients that are in place here in Auburn, when people come to visit, they come here for a reason. This is one of the most beautiful parts of the country. In Auburn, we have a full-service community. We can offer water, sewer, we offer fire protection, police protection, and we have the arts, we have sports programs, we have education, we have college, we have our school system. All of the ingredients are in place. What we really need to do as a city is to start making some smart decisions. And the key to it all is we need to be strong financially. Everything emanates from that. If our government doesn't have the money to do the things that we're used to keep all of our programs going, then our quality of life will be diminished. So our real challenge here is to address the financial problems that we have and get us moving in a positive direction. Everything else we have in place, the people, everything else that I mentioned. I have no doubt that if we start making some smart decisions, we will continue to grow and prosper.
Thank you, Chris. I think we have to look at this as a regional issue here. We have 80% is agriculture. We've got the cheese factory, we've got the milk factory going in, we have fresh water, quality of life issues here in Auburn, the infrastructure. We have the infrastructure so all these businesses can move forward and add jobs. We've got the arts, the quality of life issues, the Auburn double days. I can go on and on and on. It's, a lot depends on the quality of issues that bring people in here and good paying jobs. And with the infrastructure we have based here in Auburn, we can bring these people in.
The answer is we do got to think regionally. Okay, our greatest resource are the people within the city, keeping our neighborhoods intact. But if you don't have, and if you don't have a city that's affordable, you're not, whatever plan you have is not going to matter. Now, the comprehensive plan is a great land use plan. What we need to create, and what I want to implement, is an economic comprehensive plan, a fiscal comprehensive plan. Let's put a plan together that puts our fiscal house in order. This just didn't happen over a few years. This happened from past councils kicking this down the road instead of addressing the problems. Ignoring the demographics of the city. Ignoring the fact that we have a declining population. So what we need to do is make the city affordable, and we need to think regionally. We need to get together with Senate and say, let's have a site that's set and ready, shovel ready, get a generic seeker set in stone, so now we can start marketing and start being aggressive with our marketing.
I believe we're at the crossroad of the economic, what do I want to say? There's not much more we can cut here in the city. We've got a revenue problem and we've got a spending problem. I mean, it's just, we've taken X amount of dollars, a good example. We've taken a total of $12 million total property tax. Our police and fire cost us almost $18 million. We've got a spending problem. We got to get that in line.
I think first and foremost, we need to start being honest with people as a council. And one of the first things that we have to try to do is we have to try to get out of this contract with the cogen plant. It is a loser. It's been a loser from the very beginning, and we're talking big money. We're talking millions of dollars. The report that was given out by the controller before she left the city's employment in May indicated that we transferred just a little over $4 million out of our general fund, which is our cash on hand. It's gone to pay for losses with that cogen plant. And I think some of the other things that I would do aside from that is the budget process. When you look at what the council has done in the past several years, there have been no department head meetings to go over the budgets in detail, at least not the way we did it in the past. We should employ zero-based budgeting, which requires all the departments to come in and to explain what they're doing and what their expenditures are for and where their revenues for their corresponding operations are coming from. That I don't see happening right now. So there's no doubt that we have some very serious financial problems. Everyone knows that. That's the big issue this election season. It's a matter of who's going to be sitting at the table and who's going to get serious and who's going to make our city accountable, our city government accountable. I think part of my goal would be to do what I have to ensure that city management is accountable and city government is accountable.
I wish we had more than 2 minutes. Unfortunately, this is a huge, huge problem. There's spending, yes, and then we need to find revenue, but there's a few things I looked up just to see what the impact of poor planning and bad decisions has on our budget. And when we talk about general fund, just so everyone knows, that's like at home, the account you would pay your bills with, and like where your paycheck would go at the end of the week. Just for an example, we don't have a comptroller, but we do pay people to do the work of the comptroller. The former comptroller has been helping us part-time or on the side, and she's been paid about $35,000 in 3 years. An auditing firm helped us close the books one year for a little over $10,000. And this year's budget totaled, all told, was $176,000 to get outside help to cover the cost of the budget. Our failed cogen totaled $4 million. That's in the last 3 years. And then there's legal expenses that, I know my time's almost up, so I won't go there. There's so many unbelievable expenses that the city is paying because we have cut people without planning ahead. It's sure, maybe we need to cut people, but we need a plan. Maybe we need to reduce staff, but there's got to be a plan in place, or we end up spending millions of dollars that it's like shooting yourself in the foot.
Agree with the last three fellow candidates. Debbie, I agree with you that we've cut too much from the city. We've cut services without planning ahead. I agree with fellow candidate, former Mayor Christie Angeles. This cogen failed contract is draining the city. We've lost good jobs over the last 3 years. And I do differ with my opponent, Councilor Smith, in the fact that I don't equate people that are on public assistance with those that are public employees. I am a public employee. I'm proud being a public employee. I work and help the community through my work, and I support the public employees. And I think what's happened recently is that public employees have been under attack, and I want to support the public employee sector because they're not the real drain on the city. It is bad management, bad contracts that are draining the city. And those people that work for the city, they pay taxes, they buy goods, and they make the city strong. So when jobs go, the city weakens, and I want to make sure that I agree with former Mayor DeAngelis, we need to get out of this contract as soon as possible, or else there's going to be more cuts, and I don't want to see that happen to the city.
Thank you, and we'll have the opportunity to talk a little bit more about the cogeneration facility in just a minute. Councilor Graney apologizes. He warned us beforehand that he's dealing with illness in the family and that he might have to leave, and it appears that that's the case. So we'll continue with the 4 candidates that we have here. And we want to now turn to the other side of the ledger and look at revenues. Why don't we start with Debbie McCormick, and then go to Terry Cuddy, then Matt Smith, and then Chris DeAngelis. And the question here is, how would you grow the city's revenues?
That's a good question. Again, to look at revenue, you'd have to look into the fees that we charge for services, the user fees. And I don't want to be a dead book, but according to the comprehensive plan, there are different ways we can, the codes department would be a good example. There's services and different ways that the codes department can charge, and you need to do that in order to support the cost of the codes department. Right now, our codes department is only open 2 days a week. We've cut the codes department back, and that's a department that is critical to development in the city. If somebody wants to add on to a building or improve their home, they need a permit. They can't get one on Monday, Wednesday, or Friday. So if we had fees to support it, that are reasonable. We can't give everything away for free. I think we need to consider that, and I think that our council has eliminated some of the fees, thinking that they were taxes, and they're not taxes. They're fees that pay for the services that they're getting, and I think we should think about that in that way, or else you can't pay for the services. That's why we have no codes on Monday, Wednesday, or Friday.
Let's go to Terry and then Matt.
I will say this, I do agree with Councilor Smith on trying to work with the county to change the tax formula. I mean, Auburn has been on the short end of the stick, but I also believe that economic development, bringing in revenue, and trying to build what's already started in this city, where I see growth is in the service sector, in the arts, and culture. And I want to see the plans that have been put into place come to fruition without any kind of roadblocks, second guessing, because that's where the action is happening in Auburn. So if we want to see revenue come in, yes, the tax code needs to change so that Auburn does receive the funds it needs to build and to grow and to offer more services to potential businesses and high-tech businesses. We do need to support our technology park, which is also, bursting at the seams. And we want to make sure that the companies that are already here get the kind of infrastructure and services that they expect from a municipality like Auburn. So my goal is to take advantage of the talent, both the people and the businesses that are chosen to stay in Auburn. And I want to see it grow, and I want to nurture it. I want to make sure that we're a player in the 21st century and a place that new businesses want to come here to start and to make this area, Auburn, a great city again.
A couple things. I am one of those counselors, and I'm proud of it, that cut fees. Close to $100,000 worth of fees. I do not believe an individual homeowner should be punished for putting shingles on the roof. An individual homeowner should not be punished for putting sheetrock in their garage. So you're correct. Our tax dollars pay for that. So yes, I am one of those counselors that led the way in cutting fees, and I will continue to do so. Secondly, one of the other things that was mentioned, raising fees is the answer to revenues. In other words, we also heard raising taxes is the way for revenues. Okay, I already mentioned my plan. Okay, I want to look outside, think regionally. Let's get the relationship with the town of Senate. They have the land. Let's make that economic relationship happen so we can bring in that company. We can show them here's a site available, ready, shovel ready. But guys, what this all comes down to, leading to my next point, I'm a public employee. I work for the school district in Weedsboro, but there's a difference. I understand who I work for. I work for the citizens. Okay, I understand at contract time that my 2% raise is on the back, okay, on some guy who just got laid off from McQuay. 400 people laid off from McQuay going down to Tennessee. Right? That's the difference. I understand who I work for. And when I'm on that council, when I make decisions, yeah, codes department's open 2 days a week. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to change things around where people get on the internet, get their certificate, get their CO, whatever they need. We're using technology. All right, and I believe that we should job share within our departments. Yeah, it will be a fight with the unions, but that's thinking differently. We're a smaller city. Smaller city needs to think smarter. We've lost 600 people since 2010. It has to come back. As I keep bringing up, you have to understand the demographics of what we're able to afford.
Well, I'd like to just address a comment that was just made about employees at McQuay. That was a business decision that was made by the company. They felt that they needed to move this operation in Auburn to another plant where they had capacity. I understand that's not going well for them, and we should really be talking to them about where we can help them to reoccupy their space that they're planning on. Maybe have moved some of the lines out. I think that's a very real possibility. On water and sewer, I think this is an area where we can realize some revenues, but it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take good faith. We have to work with all of the towns. For years and years, there's been a great deal of distrust between the towns and the city over water and sewer issues and rates. Had all kinds of contracts. I think it's time that we, the city, sit down open up the books, invite everyone in, and have them take a look at what our costs are to operate both facilities. We establish a rate for everyone, forget about all these different contracts with all the different rates, and we say to everyone, this is what our cost is, this is how much more we're going to charge, this is what we're going to sell water and sewer services to everyone. On the revenue end of it, I think that with talking again regionally and working and consolidating, working with other towns, I think we have an opportunity to take our water and sewer maintenance departments and offer those services to some of the towns as they expand water and sewer to their various towns. We have the equipment, we have the people working in those departments. I think if we sit down and we have a dialogue, we start to build some good faith with town officials, we can look in that area for some new revenues.
Great, thank you very much. Let's talk about the cogen facility that's already been discussed a little bit. This is the facility at the landfill designed to turn methane gas into electricity. It was supposed to be a moneymaker for the city, but has been running at a loss for a variety of reasons. This came up in several of our surveys, concerned about the financial strain it is putting on the city, as well as some frustration that was expressed at what the survey respondents saw as a lack of public debate and disclosure on this issue. We ultimately are going to have everybody talk for 2 minutes about what they would do to moving forward to extricate us from this deal, improve the deal, or whatever you think is the best approach moving forward. But first we wanted to give Councilor Smith 1 minute to take a look back at kind of how we got here, how he looks back on his own vote on this, and we'll give him 1 minute on that, and then we'll switch it up a little bit. We'll do 2 minutes with everybody looking forward on the deal.
1 minute's going to be difficult to answer this, okay? But I'll do the best I can. When you tell a story, you never tell a story from the middle. You always tell it from the beginning. When we took office, we had an incinerator that was losing $1.4 million a year for 9 years. That's what we were faced with. So now we had to do something. So this cogen facility that was approved by 2 councils, NYSERDA, the DEC, okay, the EPA, we received $1.6 million to build this project. Now, I'd like to ask the 3 people who have crystal balls how they would have dealt with the incinerator problem. Because we were losing $1.4 million a year. How are you going to deal with that? We had to do something with this because environmentally, what are you going to do? Just start firing that gas off? That's not environmentally safe. The environmental... 1 minute, stop to answer this one, folks.
Well, you'll get another 2 minutes on the tail end of this question. Actually, why don't we go right back to you, and then we'll let the other candidates respond.
Can I ask
So,
a question?
You want to ask a question of...
Well, you might not allow it, the floor might not allow it, but the counselor asked all of us a question.
I really don't want this to turn into a debate, especially since we've gotten such a phenomenal turnout
I
here.
think it's important that we answer that question.
Speak for yourself.
I can tell you what I would have done.
You each have 2 minutes to discuss. Chris, we'll start with you. And we have 2 minutes to talk about this issue. You're welcome to answer Councilor Smith, of course. And we're also hoping to hear about how each of you plan to deal with the situation that we're in currently.
Okay. So the question was posed, what would we have done? I would have sat down and taken a very serious look at rehabilitating the incinerator up to current standards, so when we're in compliance with environmental regulations, and we would have had to spend the money to rehabilitate it. But we would not have lost all the money that we lost in sending our sludge out of here. We don't talk about the fact that since that decision was made, we've spent a lot of money. We've lost a lot of money spending sludge out of the city. We've paid for that. So I would have done that. The contract we're talking about with the cogen plant is a 15-year contract. You know, the city of Auburn doesn't own anything. grant money, federal tax dollars, your tax dollars were put into that project, it was built, all the equipment was purchased, and we don't own a thing. At the end of the year, at the end of the 15-year contract, we get the option to buy it after we lose money for 15 years. So, yeah, an EPA study was done. An EPA study was done saying that we needed to put a digester along with this plant, and we needed to bring sludge in to create additional methane to make that project profitable. So my question is, not to anyone, I'm just wondering, why would you move forward with one part of the project when you know an even bigger part of the project to make it financially viable? You're not going to do it. You didn't do it. No wonder why you're losing money.
Sure, Terry, then Deputy McCormick, and then we'll go back to Councilor Smith.
So, thanks for the question, Greg, and actually the people that fill out the survey. I believe that municipalities should stick to their core competencies: public safety, public utilities, and public works. That's what a city does. Now, I vaguely remember the incinerator issue way back when I was videotaping council meetings when I was just out of college. But it seems to be a pattern. Why is the city trying to get into a business which ends up costing us millions of dollars, whether it be the incinerator or the failed energy contract? We should just basically make sure that our landfill does what it should, which should serve the people of Auburn, just like the city employees serve the people of Auburn. So I think that we need to go back to our core competencies, foster growth in business, be inviting to businesses to come here and plant their business here, their factory, their organization, and make sure that Auburn knows that, make sure that they know that Auburn is open for business, and we're not going to try to go out and start getting into the energy business and getting into bad energy deals and making deals with companies that don't have the best interests in Auburn at heart. So that's why I think we should get out of this deal as soon as possible.
If only we could. I've asked around at City Hall and tried to do them, again, if you're not part of the council, there's certain things that are confidential, so there's pieces of it you wouldn't know, but I think there's no good way, from what I can figure out. It's going to be something like, you're going to lose either way, it's just how much are we going to lose? You can lose less, but somehow we're all going to pay for this for quite a while. There's no like getting out of it. It's an unfortunate thing. I think it goes back to a lot of the cavalier attitude, driven to do what you want to do without really taking into consideration what experts say. From what I understand, no other city in New York State did this, so that to me would have been a big red flag. If the contract is like almost 12 inches deep, I wouldn't even begin to try to read it. I don't think we'll ever, well, in 15 years we might get out of this. But again, this is what's killing our budget. This is why we're cutting jobs. This is why firemen are getting laid off, why departments are being depleted of staff, which cuts into citizen services, which hurts our public safety, why SROs we're having a hard time paying for that, why crossing guards are getting cut. It's because of these decisions. We got to trust our staff and pay them a lot of money, and if they don't agree and they advise not to do something, I really think we've got to listen to the people that are the experts.
Two councils had a cavalier attitude. They voted unanimously. So Mayor Quill was on TV and he said this project will bring in jobs. Okay, Mayor Lattimore's project, or council, voted unanimously. Mayor Quill's council voted unanimously. So we all had cavalier attitudes. And we just looked at this and said, no, let's create a project that loses millions of dollars. First of all, as Paul Harvey says, there's the rest of the story. Okay? If this cogen was making money, we still would have a $3 million deficit because 73% of our cost is labor. Okay? Another issue. If we went ahead with a digester, folks, you gotta do the research. If we went ahead with a digester, the reason why we didn't do it is because the price of steel was going through the roof. If we went ahead with the digester, our losses would then triple. If we went ahead with the digester, part of this project. The next point. Guys, this is a bad contract, there's no doubt about it. Because we listened to the experts. We listened to the people who were advising us. Another point on this, if you look at this digester program, all the experts were listened to, but on top of that, what are you going to do when the commodities market goes down? We have no control over the price of natural gas. Natural gas went through the roof. Okay, now again, if you have a crystal ball, anyone can be an armchair quarterback. Guys, I'm a progressive thinker. I am not going to apologize for thinking outside the box, because this cogen facility is an economic tool. And yes, I can't say too much because we're in aggressive negotiations as we speak. But within a year, this thing will be breaking even, at worst, breaking even. But the bottom line is we'll have a tool to bring in businesses. That was the purpose of this. And by the way, we had a customer. We had a customer ready to come in. We would have sold power. We wouldn't even have this conversation. Guys, it's easy to say the problems with the cogen, but it's not. How are you going to account for the other $3 million deficit? That's just a red herring to get away from the difficult decision of saying, I don't have the will to cut.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Okay, let's talk about the fire department a little bit. We're going to have two questions on this. The first one will just be 1 minute each for response, and then we'll get a little bit more substantive with the second question. Why don't we start with Chris DeAngelis on this, and then go to Debbie McCormick, and then to Terry Cuddy, and then to Matt Smith, and then we'll switch up the order again. The first question, do we currently have enough firefighters in uniform to handle multiple calls, both fire and medical, and keep city residents and the firefighters themselves safe? Again, we just have 1 minute on this.
My answer to that question is this. And I know, like everyone else here, I believe, when they have an emergency, whether it be fire or medical emergency, it's my loved one, a friend, anything, we want to know when we pick up the phone that someone's going to be there. And they're going to be there on a timely basis to help us. So the decision that was made to cut the department by 10 positions, I do not believe was well thought of. It was a decision that was made at the last minute, or it seemed as if that way during the budget process. And it seems like a lot of decisions are made without having good information. In order to make a good decision, you have to be informed. And one of the issues that started to come out through the media is the potential cost of making that decision, which could be far greater than any savings that was envisioned.
And then Terry Cuddy.
Thank you. I don't believe at this moment there's enough people, firemen, to keep us safe. I also think it's costing with the overtime that we have to pay, because we're still mandated to have enough 12 people, that it's costing us money. And for the record, in 2013, there were 104 structure fires and only 11 robberies in the city. I think that we do have a need for the firefighters. Maybe we don't know or hear of all the calls, but when you need one, they're there. Was that a timer?
You have 25 seconds.
25 seconds. I can fill it. There's a lot more. I mean, maybe you don't think there's a lot of fires, but in September, I think it was September, when the firefighters were laid off for the first time this year, there was 2 fires, and I think one of them, 2 firefighters were injured.
I've been shocked a few times, going to recent city council meetings. One was the vote where the council voted to fire 10 firefighters. That was shocking. There was a rationale to save the city some money and to make a tough decision. Fast forward to last Thursday night. You have city employees working hard to get a grant so that we can get those 10 firefighters back their jobs for a temporary time, for 2 years, so that the council can deliberate and consider what they can do later at a certain point to restructure. That would have brought revenue to the city. It was just for an application of a grant. You could have, or the council could have rejected it, but why would we even stomp out the chance to bring money into our city that we paid for as taxpayers?
Councilor Smith, 1 minute on this. Do we currently have adequate staffing? And then we'll get a little bit more in depth into the finances.
We have adequate staffing. The smaller cities our size have adequate staffing. 73% of the cities across the country are volunteer fire departments. I'm not advocating for that, I'm just telling you. Go to Elmira, larger population than us, their minimum manning levels are 10 to 12. They have 33 full-time firefighters. The rest are volunteers. Okay, there's all across the country. You'll find example after example of volunteers. So these guys are saying, because it's not popular to go against the fire. Look at the number of them that are here tonight. It's not popular to go against them. Politically, it's not. But what's politically popular is usually fiscally wrong. They've been immune from cuts for years. Now, 120 structural fires, guys, what's the definition of a structural fire? A toaster? Okay, let's look at the definition of a structural fire. Okay, you can say a structural fire is anything. 120 homes were on fire this past year. 20,000 calls for the police department per year. 3,000 to 4,000 Auburn Fire Department. Look at the budgets, $8, $9 million for the Auburn Fire Department. Okay, compare that to other cities our size. Do the research, folks, you'll find out.
Thank you. A reminder on our timekeeping method here. 1 finger means you're halfway through your time, which may be 1 minute or maybe 2 minutes, depending on the question. 2 fingers means that you have 10 seconds left, and so that you want to think about wrapping up. And it won't be timed until she yells time. So you'll know it for sure when it's time for you to relinquish the microphone. On this one, why don't we start with Terry Cuddy, then go to Matt Smith, then go to Christy Angelis, and then go to Debbie McCormick. We just asked about, do we have adequate staffing to keep the city safe? Safety, of course, is a huge concern, but so is affordability. In an effort to trim costs, as has been alluded to, some firefighters were recently laid off. Meanwhile, others are working overtime. Did the move to eliminate these firefighters' positions make sense? Is it saving the city money? And moving forward, what's the best way to ensure both safety and affordability in our fire department? 2 minutes on this.
Thank you, Greg. Because of the way and manner in which council cut those positions, there's now a legal battle between the union and the city about breach of contract. Now, that's what contract negotiations are for. They're between the union and the city manager. What I saw happening in council a few months ago was 4 city managers trying to say what they would cut, what they would do. I've never seen anything like it before. So I believe in collective bargaining. I believe that the firefighters, the union, made $600,000 in concessions, which was in good faith, very similar to the Auburn Police Department. What needs to happen is that we need to continue to do how cities function, and collective bargaining is a part of municipal governments, and I don't want to see that breach, and I don't want to see that undercut by what I consider cavalier and reckless governing. So I want to see that we honor the tried and true tradition of management and negotiations, working, and I believe that a lot of these unions know how difficult financial these times are, and they're willing to make concessions. It's happening all over the country, but we can't undercut collective bargaining. That's the last thing we need to do, because we need to have these public employees strong. We need to have morale strong in our city, and we need to make sure that the city employees know that they're supported by their own government. So, having said that, I just want to say that my support for the firefighters is as a fellow public employee.
Okay. If it's so dangerous, the city's so dangerous with the current structure, why does over 30% of the firemen live outside the city in volunteer fire districts, if it's so dangerous? Secondly, Mr. Cuddy doesn't understand binding arbitration. Okay, because you go and bind an arbitration, the city's the one that usually gets hosed. No pun intended. The average pay increase in binding arbitration is 3.3%. The city can't afford that. And $600,000 of concessions, you're obviously hooked up with the fire department, because there has been no such thing. Talk to our attorney, they'll tell you something different. Naturally, what they were asking for, the city might as well put the for sale sign on, because we would have been bankrupt. Okay? You were looking at what they were asking for would have put every single department at risk. Gone. Because they were asking for another manning level, where you couldn't cut below a certain number. So that's what was going on in contract negotiations. That's the truth, not fiction. There's fear. We're in court right now. You're darn right we are. We're in court because the minimum manning is breaking this city. We need to get rid of the minimum manning level. 5 police officers are covering the city. 14 are in a firehouse. Okay? There's a reason, guys, why this minimum manning, they don't want to get rid of it. Because it's instant gravy. It's instant overtime. This city used to be covered by 12 firemen, no minimum manning. We have better technology, sprinkler systems, we have fewer buildings, fewer people, but we want to stay with the status quo. Status quo, tax and spend, will leave us to insolvency. Yes, they want to blame it on a cogen facility because that's politically expedient. It's easy to do that, but it's hard to make the tough decisions. It's hard to look at those men and say, guys, we can't afford it, we have to cut. Because you're public employees doesn't mean you're guaranteed a job. I know that full well. My school district's gone through cuts. Look what the Auburn School District has done. They cut a school because we don't have the children to fill it.
I really don't understand why someone would want to wear, people losing their jobs as a badge of honor that you go out and that you're proud of. Now, yes, we're in a difficult situation, but really the way to handle this is, now that all parties know how very real and the severity of our problem is, our financial predicament is, I think the way to do this is to sit down with all the parties. Now, I'm not naive. I know labor has their side, management has their side, but I think we need to reach out in good faith. We have to try to build good relations, and we have to work with the fire department and the other unions as we struggle with our financial issue, and try to come up with a way to organize our city so that we're providing services in a cost-effective way, in an efficient way. The other thing I don't understand is the SAFER agreement. Why someone slammed the door shut. I went and did some homework. I looked into it. There's nothing there. The SAFER grant, by the way, is the money that was talked about as far as keeping the fire department at full staffing for the next few years while we try to work through this problem. I don't see anything in there. There's no match. I don't think there's anything in there that I would be concerned about. Yeah, there's some language about staffing levels, but keeping them at current levels. But this is not a long-term solution. It's a solution that would buy us some time, would bring money into the community, and would allow us to sit down with the parties involved and try to work through this in good faith. I really think that's what we need to do.
Aye.
Well, it's the last one, I think I remember the question, it's about the,
I can repeat it if you like.
because I don't want to miss it.
And you set that time clock for them.
Yes, I have.
So, did the move to lay off these firefighters make financial sense? Is it saving the city money? And moving forward, what's the best way to ensure both safety and affordability?
Thank you. It did not make sense. Because everyone that went before me kind of drives my response, I think Mr. DeAngelis had a good point. Wearing it as a badge of honor or accomplishment to lay people off is telling. Manning, firefighter, the minimum manning is not killing the city. And I have to say it again, that is not killing the city. And to pit departments against each other does not help the city. The fire department does have more men on duty, and women, excuse me, at one shift than the police department. They have 5 on the street, but that building that they're in isn't empty. There's people there too, but I'm not sure, I wish I did know right off the top of my head. But they're not just 5 police officers on duty. And both fire and police are valuable employees, and their jobs are more risky than mine is. And I do value their work, and I think everybody does. And if we need police and fire, we need them both. I think cutting either side of that these days is a big mistake if you don't have to. And the SAFER grant was a perfect, no strings attached way to have 2 more years to work on a plan to maybe trim it down through attrition. And there was a waiver in that grant that would allow them to do it. It wasn't tying our hands. It would have been a perfect way to do it, and it was just to apply for it. I do think it was a mistake, poor decision, and I think it's wrong to say things like that minimum manning and overtime is gravy, and I really take issue with calling minimum manning a cancer on the city.
Aye.
When I first took office, I went to a NICOM meeting, and the top labor attorney for this NICOM conference said, the top labor attorney in the state, he said, whenever they bring up minimum manning contract negotiations, get up and walk out, because that's instant bankruptcy. End of quote. Minimum manning, most fire departments do not have them. Many do not have them, especially across the country. All right, it is a huge cost. You want to look at the overtime costs? Go look at their overtime costs, okay? You'll see how big it is. Now, it's telling when you hear badge of honor. Guys, cutting anyone's job, okay? Especially people that you were once friends with, former students, okay? That's not something I enjoy doing. But see, that's the difficulty in being in this position. And that's what they're unwilling to do, are the difficult tasks. They want to hire everyone. They want to bring back 10 firemen. How are you going to pay for it? All right, that's close to $1 million right there that we saved. So you hear all the criticisms, but you don't hear solutions. Anybody can criticize. Come up with some solutions. The police department came in good faith. They took a 2% and a 0% increase. I'll tell you something, that was not on the table with the fire department. We have your audit 2 years ago, and our testimony marshal came in and he said, listen, you could raise taxes 10% and you still will not be able to cover your cost. 10% and you still will not be able to cover your cost when 73% of your cost is labor. Either deal with the issues or turn your head and be an instant rubber stamp. That leads to bankruptcy.
Okay, thank you. I've become to law, there's a little bit of track of the different permutations of orders that have gone in here, so I apologize if I'm not being completely consistent on that. On this one, why don't we start with Matt Smith, and we'll work our way down the table to Terry Cuddy. How would you describe the morale among the city workforce. Has the current council created an atmosphere in which talented employees and prospective employees would want to work for the city? If not, how can city government become a place where people want to work? So sorry for the triple-barreled question here, but it's the current morale of the city workforce, the atmosphere that the council has created, and how to create the atmosphere that we want to attract talented employees.
If you look at our salaries, go look at on-site, go online and look at our budget and see what we pay. I don't think we'll have too much trouble attracting people. Okay, I don't think that'll be a problem. All right, compare it to the private sector. Compare it to the county employees. You won't have that problem. Okay, 4 assistant chiefs making $104,000. Okay, you won't have a problem. Everyone in City Hall is paid very fairly. Okay, you start off, we mentioned the fire department at 43, you're at 63 in 5 years, they're paid pretty well. Policemen are paid well. DPW guys are paid well. I don't think there's a problem. Morale problem, you know what the morale problem comes from? The morale problem comes from saying, our department always gets to end. Like the Department of Public Works. They have been the whipping boy of budgets for over 20 years. And that's why we have a depleted Department of Public Works department. That's where you have morale problems. You have morale problems when you see other departments immune to cuts. So the atmosphere that you're referring to, this is the atmosphere of opportunity. Because are we in difficult times? Absolutely. But in difficult times comes opportunity. We have to make the city sustainable. And again, it comes back to Washington's full of brilliant people. New York State's full of brilliant people in Albany. But they don't have the guts to go with their convictions. What I'm saying I know is not popular. It's not popular to say it in the city of Auburn. Okay? But I'd rather be wrong and not be a councilman. Okay? I'd rather be right. Okay? I'd rather be right as a councilman. If that costs me my seat, fine. I can sleep because I'm going to walk away with my integrity. But guys, these are just the facts. Plain and simple. Look at the budget numbers and you'll see that for yourself. Boy, one more minute.
Well, no, usually
The
that's.
2 fingers is 10 seconds left, and then time is up right after that.
I'm sitting here wondering again where, I know it's because of our difficult financial times, but I'm wondering why I haven't heard any of this talk for 7 of the 8 years that council has been in council. And only now are we hearing about this. And, our financial situation has changed. But if this is what you truly believe, I don't know why we're just hearing about it now. If there's a morale problem at City Hall, and there probably is, I think it has a lot to do with a lack of leadership. Sometimes you go to meetings or you go into City Hall and it's like the tail is wagging the dog. So I think what we really need to do, again, to try to work with people, try to put in place a good organizational structure with chains of command that actually work. Because I don't think that exists to a large degree today, and I think that's where a lot of our morale problems come
Um, Morale problem, I would know probably firsthand because I'm there every day. And it would be safe to say it's a gloomy place. And that might not be morale altogether, it's just there's so few people that are still in City Hall. It's just really quiet. And for the last few years, when budget time comes, because there's no planning, people are on edge because they don't know by June 18th or June 30th what's going to happen. It's not really comfortable. I worked for a bank when a downsizing was happening, and they had a plan. They had to downsize, but they had a plan. They had people that were being downsized were treated well. They were given counseling. Even the people that didn't get downsized had counseling. We did not have that happen. But I think it reflects back to the community. The community is also part of the whole picture. And the people I see when I go door to door, they're uneasy. They're not feeling too great about how things are going. They're asking questions. And I think that the morale, it's spread beyond the walls of City Hall. People do watch our city council meetings, and they look to us as leaders for stability and for confidence in our city government, not for fear, not for anxiety. We need to give the public, the people that pay taxes, something to look forward to. I know that there's tough financial times, and I know there's ways to get through it. I'm sure there are, because the city's been around a long time, and there's been tough financial times. But to not do things with plans, to make plans for, you end up paying legal services and accounting services that are into the $500,000.
To Terry, John, thank you.
Morale is bad in City Hall. Morale is bad in City Hall because when the council calls a department head to speak, that department head isn't going to give council the truth. They're going to give council what council wants to hear. That's what's happening in City Hall because they're walking on eggshells, because they're expecting to be demeaned, disrespected in front of the cameras and in front of the city. That is the beginning of bad morale. Then it goes down to the employees. They're in the middle of this. I understand Public Works has been cut for several years. I understand that. There's been cuts with crossing guards. Here's what I'm concerned with. We can't just cut our way out of a budget deficit. We can't just cut. What is the vision? What is the promise? And I'm trying to bring, and I know that I may be criticized for saying the word tone, but tone is important. Tone sets a stage. I know that if City Hall continues and those council meetings continue with that toxic environment, the morale is just going to get worse. So I am going to bring change to the way that council conducts itself. How they address each other, I think, is problematic. And it shouldn't be this kind of chummy-chum way of dealing with each other that is an inside joke. It should be respectful to each other, respectful to the department heads, respectful to the employees, and respectful to the city, the people of Auburn.
To address Chris's point, talking to council now, I think we've been in hibernation for a few years because for 8 months.
This is a different question.
I'm sorry, you spoke on this, right, the morale question?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Can I get you guys to respond?
You know what, you might be slipping into another question. Sorry, that was my bad for not being on time. So we have 2 more questions left, and then we're going to go to questions from the audience. And a lot's been said here tonight that I'm sure all of you would like to respond to, and I'm sure there'll be opportunities throughout the campaign, but as we stated from the beginning, this is not a debate, it's a forum, and we wanted the audience to hear directly from you your answers to the question. So, on this one, why don't we start with Debbie McCormick, then we'll go to Terry Cuddy, and then we'll go to Matt Smith, and then we'll go to Chris DeAngelis. Ignite formed at a time when a substantial amount of research was being produced that showed economic prosperity follows young professionals, not the other way around. In other words, becoming a place where young professionals and creatives want to live is in itself an economic development strategy. So what can city government do to make Auburn a place where young people want to live?
It's in the plan. professionals are the generation that wants everything right now or before. The city government needs to be able to provide information about the city of Auburn in the middle of the night, online, access to services, pay your bills, fill out forms. It has to be the window to the city instantly. We're doing pretty good for Auburn. We have a website. We're trying to do the social media. We're trying. But to get Auburn beyond that, we need to have the things that young professionals, young families are looking for in living. We need to have safe neighborhoods, nice housing, better housing. We need to, I can't really even do that. We need to have support, the city needs to, and the community needs to support cultural and theater and things that young professionals like for entertainment. They're more social. Not that we're not, the old folks are social too. It's hard to think of myself as that, but instant access, what do you call it? Wireless. So that people can come and live the way they're accustomed to in maybe a larger city. And jobs, that's another great idea. They need to have a job, but we live in a community that is close to bigger metropolitan areas, that this is a nice place to live and commute to, where there's bigger opportunities, better opportunities maybe, but...
Time.
Thanks for that question, Greg. I remember very early on in the infancy of Ignite, Casey Bellardine being part of it, yourself, Jesse, a young, small group of people beginning to understand that economic development is going to be stemming from the creative ideas of young people. Now, I left Auburn twice, both to go to school. First to Alfred University, where I was introduced to video art and printmaking. And instead of going to New York City or LA or Chicago like many of my friends did, I came back to Auburn to help my dad and our family business, Maggie's Pies and Pasta. But guess what I did? I kept making videos. And I kept making the videos, the kind of videos that I was learning about in Alfred. And those videos were challenging, and they were documentaries, they were about social issues, some environmental issues. And then I worked several graphic design jobs here. I went back to school in Buffalo, and to get my master's degree and to teach. And I came back to Auburn. And what I'm doing now is I'm continuing on that tradition of bringing some of the great things I learned outside of the city, sharing what I know Auburn is great, sharing that with the people in Auburn. And for the last 9 years, I was bringing international artists to Auburn, and they appreciate Auburn. And I want to bring that energy to Auburn as a city councilor and show that Auburn is open for business for young people, creative people, and those that are willing to take risks to really make Auburn happen again.
Thank you, Matt Smith, and then Chris DeAngelis on the question, what can city government do to make Auburn a place where young people want to live?
Let me tell you what I have done. Past 8 years, I've created 3 pieces of housing legislation. One right now, bar loaders are using it, where the city taxpayers will not be affected. We won't lose any tax revenue. They're using it to modify one of the buildings on Genesee Street. 2 pieces of other house legislations will incentivize people to rehab their homes, change multi-units into duplexes or single owners, to lower the density of population within the city. Those are things that I have done to make Auburn better. Auburn needs to be more affordable. If you want young professionals don't have money. Okay, if they keep asking their parents, that's why many of them are still staying with their parents until 28 years old on average, nationwide. We need to have a city where kids can afford to live here. It comes back to the affordability aspect. I'm a young professional. My wife Melissa and I were born and bred in this community. Went to high school here. Our children go to the local school districts. Okay, I'm invested in this community. My parents, okay, they're on a fixed income. My father's retired. I want to make this city a place where young people can come and can stay. And we have all the attributes. This is a sports community, and it can be an arts community. It can be all of the above. We have that capacity to do that. But you need leadership to make the difficult decisions to make it where the city can be affordable. Because number one thing that they're going to be looking at is, how can I afford to live here? And we need jobs. All right, that's the bottom line. We need jobs. We need jobs to keep people here. And that's why we need a fiscal economic plan, not just a land use plan. Okay, that's great for landscaping pictures, but what it comes down to, we need an economic fiscal plan that keeps our economic house in order. And that means we need to work with the county. We need to bring together and have a one true stop shop that's going to bring businesses here. That's what will attract young folks.
I would just point out that all of those changes that the council just spoke about, I don't think they were created by him. I think, to his credit, he pursued them. But none of it can be done without the New York State Office of Real Property. That's where all of that exists. As far as what we can do, I agree with everything that's been said here, most of what's been said. And you heard me speak earlier and say, I think all the ingredients are, we have all the ingredients here. We have the people, we have everything that a full-service community has to offer. The one thing that we really need to focus on is the job opportunity aspect of it. If we're going to keep, or if we're going to attract and keep young people here, they have to have economic opportunities in order to consider this place as their home, as a place that they want to live. So one of the things that I would make sure that we do, ensure that we do, is that we become active participants with all of the economic, well, not all of them, but with the main economic development organizations that are out there, the state, New York Economic Development Council, the National Development Council, and that when I say active, we should be sending a representative to their functions to network with people, to network with economic development professionals, to network with other communities. This is where you hear about businesses, what business people are thinking in prospective companies that we could attract here. We are not going to do that by sitting here in Auburn, although paying attention to our businesses that currently exist is an important component. What we need to do is get out there, we need to network, we need to send someone from this community to do that.
Thank you for all of your answers to that. This is actually the last question from the ones that we took from the survey. And why don't we start with Chris DeAngelis on this one, and then we'll go to Councilor Smith, and then Terry Tuddy, and then Debbie McCormick. And then we'll hear from you questions from all of you. Government and politics are inherently contentious, yet there's a growing recognition that the size and scope of the challenges we face as a city and region require coordination, cooperation, and collaboration, both within city government and with other entities such as the county. What can you specifically do as a councilor to overcome some of the mistrust, create working relationships, and encourage the types of coordinated action our current situation requires?
Well, I certainly can attest to the fact that things can get contentious. I have a record. They were when I was there. I'm not going to run away from that. I left office and I held my head high. I have no regrets. But one thing I can say is, in the intervening time, I've had opportunities to go and work with other communities, help them with their problems, work working with the state CDBG program. It brought me to places in the state that I didn't even know existed. And I got to meet with other local officials, I got to meet with professionals in community development, and it puts a whole different perspective on things. I would like to believe that in the time that I've spent doing that I've grown as a person. And one of the things I think that I've learned to do is to do a lot more listening and to reach out to people, even if they don't share your point of view. That's what we should be doing. As we do the city's business, we're going to have all different kinds of, we're going to have people with different life experiences, different points of view. So it's critical that we try to find a way to communicate, to work together. We don't always have to agree, but after all, our government is there so that all of these different points of view can be heard. And hopefully, after we hear them and have civil discussions, we can make some good decisions for the city.
Councilor Smith, yes, thank you.
I've had a positive relationship with the department heads. Anytime they want to talk, they know they call me, I meet them. I've met them on Sundays, I've met them on Saturdays. I have a very good relationship with the majority of the department heads. That doesn't mean I'm not going to question them. Okay, now my housing legislation, I worked with Mr. Assemblyman Finch, Senator Zolio, to get them passed. Anything that deals with taxes and changing your assessment, it has to go through Auburn, as Chris well knows. I am not a professional politician. I don't want to be, I don't plan to be. Okay? My identity is as a father and as a husband. Husband first, father second. Okay? That's my identity. My identity does not come with the label councilman. So I'm on this board, okay? As a city councilor, that means I'm going to fight for the people that I'm there to represent. Does it mean burning bridges at times? Does it mean upsetting people? Yes. But I'm going to give you my honest position on every single issue. Isn't that what we're missing in government today? We're missing true honesty. We have enough politicians. We have enough political rhetoric. We need honesty. Everyone knows, you may agree or disagree with me, you know where Matt Smith stands on the issues. Okay? I don't wait until the dust settles and then choose where I'm going to stand. Okay? I'm not in government to usurp and gain more power for myself. That's not me. I'm here, when I agree with something, I'll agree with you. When I disagree with it, I'll disagree with you. But at least you know where I stand. You cannot say that about too many politicians today in this country, or what we've had as far as in this city. I've been in the minority for 7 years, okay, that I've been in office. And look what I've been able to accomplish. Okay, I've worked with the other party. How did I get that piece of legislation through? From working with the other party members. I've done that. I've been chastised by my own party for working with the other party. All right? Councilor Grady's been chastised for working with the other party. Okay, I put the label aside.
Time.
It's all about working together with our members.
And Daddy McCormick on what we can do to build the trust and establish relationships we need for real coordination and collaboration.
Very good, Greg, thank you. Coordination, cooperation, collaboration. As I stated earlier, I am a career and tech teacher at Hugo Onondaga BOCES. I teach graphic design and new media. There I work with students, much like Councilor Smith. I'm a teacher, I work with high schoolers. Okay, and as a teacher, obviously you got to collaborate and coordinate with them. What's interesting about BOCES, specifically this BOCES, which is a great institution, is that as we're teaching them knowledge, we're teaching them skills that can get them jobs. So I teach them how to be graphic designers, filmmakers, videographers, animators. Not only do we teach them skills and knowledge, we also partner with businesses in the community. I have a consultant committee, and there are businesses that come in, professors that come in to meet with the teachers at BOCES, and they guide us on what kind of worker they want, what kind of student they want, and we collaborate with them to create the kind of worker and student so that we are not only improving the students' lives, but improving the community by preparing them for that. So, on council, I plan on emulating that model of working with community, working with young people, to get them interested in government, to get them interested in the skills and knowledge they have can have an effect on their immediate surroundings. So my experience at BOCES is preparing me for leadership, and as the skills that they're learning at BOCES prepares them for a leadership role in their community. And
Time.
that's it.
Thank you. I think that working with, or collaborating with people is essential as far as, on both sides, with employees and with the surrounding communities, the county. I don't think either the county and the towns, we can't survive anymore without each other. I think the way to do it is with, to show respect and dignity. And one person I know that I've observed while I'm in City Hall that has this really simple way of doing it, and it's been working. I don't know if he does it intentionally, but Mayor Quill goes to lunch. It's a really not technical or big thing, but he goes to lunch with the chair of the legislature and the city manager and the county administrator. And they, I don't know if they do it all together or, on a regular basis, but I know he does get together with them on a personal one-on-one, and they get to know each other. And I think you've got to do stuff like that. You've got to develop a relationship, build trust, and get to know each other as we're people that live in a county. We're not, Havens Ave, for example, in Auburn and Owasco. When you cross the street, you're in Owasco. Do you know that? No. Does it matter? The lady on the other side of the street pays more for water or less, right? But we're all, what's good for the lady on the odd side of the street is good for the man on the other side of the street. We need to work together. Nothing is going to work. Nobody's going to grow, and our community is not going to survive if we don't share services, build businesses together. We've got to learn to build relationships together. It's the only way we're going to survive. You there?
That's it.
Great. Well, we do have time left, thanks to our excellent timekeeper, and to the councilors and candidates who were willing to work within these rules. It's hard to talk about these issues in a minute or two per question, and I understand that. We do have some great questions from the audience as well, so we'll try to get as many of those in as possible in the approximately 25 minutes we have left tonight. I think this one flows well from the last question, so why don't I start with that? The Senate has an approximate $3.4 million surplus due to the large tax-generating businesses on Grand Avenue. Because Auburn is so close to these businesses, and Auburn is responsible for much of Grand Avenue's upkeep, shouldn't Senate share some of Grand Avenue's profitable tax base with Auburn? So the question is, shouldn't Senate share some of Grand Avenue's profitable tax base with Auburn? Councilor Smith has mentioned Senate a couple times tonight, so why don't we start with him?
This all goes back to what I have brought up and what Mr. Fish from the Chamber has brought up. You are not going to have economic development unless you have a tax formula. Right? That question goes right in line with what I've been saying for the last 2 years. If we don't fix this tax formula, the city is the majority of the county. Okay, we pay county taxes, we pay city taxes. Okay, we pay for 2 police services, a sheriff, okay, and a city service. All right, there needs to be better cooperation between this county and the city. But this comes to my main argument of, or my main point of, let's have a tax formula where the city gets a bigger piece of the pie. All right, and that needs to happen. That discussion has to happen. Forget the discussion. What I'm saying we do is once I get back in, okay, we have our comptroller, which, by the way, the finance department has been restructured. We're waiting for civil service to open again because it's been closed for the month of October. Right? What we do, once we get that going, We have our comptroller, our deputy comptroller, our department that now saves us $100,000, cheaper now, it's functioned cheaply, much more cheaper than it was before. We have the spreadsheets out and say, okay, this is what it would cost, an assessment based on population, or a tax formula based on population and assessments. That's what needs to be done. Throw the spreadsheets out, meet with the leaders of the county and the towns, get the votes that we need in the county legislature, hopefully all city county legislatures on board. That way the city gets a fair share of that economic pie. All right, it was very short-sighted when they exempted out of the tax formula. We lost $1.8 million. Okay, that's how much we were lacking when we exempted out of that formula. Okay, we need to think further ahead. We need to think more progressively in regards to how we bring in jobs and how we form a relationship. And guys, seeing kumbaya and getting along with everyone, if that means just saying yes to every single agreement that comes across the table, that's why we're in this mess. When I took office, the water contracts, sewer contracts were a disaster. We've changed that.
Okay, why don't we go Terry, Debbie, and then Kristen wrap up this particular question. And 2 minutes on this offense.
So the Senate surplus, as I said earlier, I do agree with Councilor Smith regarding reworking the tax formula. Yes, Auburn does get the short end of the stick, but how are we going to go about these talks with the county? If we go about it the same way as the water authority, where things break down and there's no, people leave the table and there's a kind of like, well, I guess it didn't work. I think there needs to be more behind the scenes, as what Debbie was saying. There needs to be, you need to build partnerships by actually spending time with the people in the county. You need to create relationships, and again, not convince them like, oh, you need to do this. It's not a threat. There's a way to actually negotiate in which both parties concede and both parties give. And what's happening is that we have a culture of like, well, I'm not going to give up this, and you're not. It becomes us versus them. And what I'm hoping for is that the people see that who they're voting for, at the local level, in the city, and in the county. You want to think about who you're voting for. Who's going to work together? Who is going to work together in the county? Who's going to work together in the city? This election is so important, both in the county and the city. So if you want people to work together, please make sure you vote properly, because that's what's going to change the relationship between the city and the county. You want people to work together, and that is that's what I'm hoping to do. Doesn't matter what party you're voting for, the point is is the person I'm voting for somebody that's going to reach across the aisle and we'll be able to work with each other. So I'm hopeful that the voters consider who they vote for.
If the town of Senate supervisor asked me to sing Kumbaya to get a few dollars over to the city, I'd do it. I think singing Kumbaya it's a lot better than what we're getting now. There's nothing wrong with Kumbaya. And I'm not Daisy, is it Bonnie or Daisy from Sunnybrook Farm? I know you've got to do things that are, hard. You got to be tough. But I don't think you have to be disrespectful. I don't think you have to talk down people. I don't think you have to threaten people. I really think we got to put the past behind us. What people did 10, 20, 30 years ago about race and things like that, that you can't change it. We've got to build relationships. Senate needs us. We need Senate. Aurelius needs us. We need Aurelius. Grand Ave stops. There's a line where Lowe's is on one side and Walmart's on this side. We have to build relationships in order to do what we need to do. And that may sound like a lot of fairy tales, but it's the truth. We can't expect the towns to work with us or the county if we were hostile, I wouldn't want to work with us. I have been, of those 650 council meetings I've been to, a few of them were joint meetings with the county and a few of the towns. And they weren't very comfortable. And I think we need to work on our team building skills. And then I think the town of Senate might want to share some of their tax dollars.
Yes, Christine, thank you.
I'm not sure how realistic it is. Well, first let me ask the court answer the question. That's entirely up to the town of Senate. The shoe or on the other foot, I'm not sure our answer would be the same. I don't know. I think that what we need to do is something I talked about earlier. We need to reach out, we need to have a dialogue. Yes, there have been differences in the past, but the only way to get to a point where we can work together is to reach out and build some good faith and build good relations. Does that mean we have to give up our principles, that we can't stand up for what we believe? No. I think it's a matter of finally realizing, for everyone realizing, that given today's economic conditions, we're all in this together. This is our community. We have to find ways to work together. There's no chance, I think there's very little chance that the county's going to give us any of that sales tax money. And to tie it to other issues seems as though that's a dead end. I don't hear any of the legislators from outside of the city saying that they're willing to do that. So, again, we're all in this together. We need to reach out, we need to build relationships, we need to build some good faith so we can sit down and talk about these things. And, there's been talk about regional approach. I think we're all in a position where we're going to be forced to do that. These issues of turf war are going to become a thing of the past when we all come to the realization that there's only so much money available to provide all the services that we want. So we have to work together. We have to find a way. Will it happen overnight? No. But you have to start somewhere.
Great, thank you very much. This next question, why don't we start with, let's see, why don't we start with you again, Chris, and then we'll go to Matt, and then Terry, and then Debbie. I'll read this question verbatim, and then I'll throw in a part of another question that you might be able to address as part of the same answer, and we'll do 2 minutes each on this. The question is, should there be more stringent requirements for businesses that want tax breaks in the hopes or in return for promises of providing more jobs in the city? And we have another question that asks about the project here that created the Hilton, and whether how people feel about that project now that the project is complete. So should there be more stringent requirements for businesses that want tax breaks in the city?
Yes, I think that when we look at some other communities, they have asked the state to allow them to send pilot agreements to the Common Council for review and approval. I think that the city of Auburn needs to do that. Other communities have done that. Particularly given our financial situation. It's the council that's responsible for passing the budget and for putting in place whatever oversight there is and to deliver services in an efficient way. And it should come back to the council for the council to review and approve given our current financial situation. Now, with regard to projects that have been done, such as this hotel, I don't think there's anyone that won't agree that what we have here is obviously one heck of an improvement over the Rentina building. And we have other things going on downtown that are positive. So the question really is what role does government need to continue to play in through the use of tax dollars, through the use of tax incentives. That all impacts our budget. That's why I think we need to have the council have the final say in what's going to happen in this regard. I think that we have to get to a place where when these projects of this nature come forward, that people are not so reliant on the government to fund everything, or large parts of it. I think that's why we're the country and all the way down the state and locally, why we're in the trouble we're in. Seems like someone took a system that we had, which was supposed to be, everyone's supposed to be treated equally and fairly, and they turned it upside down.
Thank you.
Sitting on the aid board for the last 4 years, dealt with the issue of pilots. And sat with Monica, we discussed this issue here with the hotel. It's a great project. I had a major problem with the eminent domain issue. I'm against having government steal private property. That issue went away. I led that. Secondly, the conversation's different now on the ADA board in regards to pilots. We're starting to rethink who should get these mega pilot deals. Personally, I think job producers should get mega pilot deals. Companies that are coming in that are going to employ and pay good paying jobs. We shouldn't be dependent on government. A lot of people, the taxpayers should not be paying more, so wealthy investors should be paying less. That's called corporate welfare. All right, and that's not something I'm going to support. But the conversation that changed on pilots now on the ADA board, now what we're going to do is we're going to start categorizing who should get what pilot. A retailer will get a certain size of pilot. A manufacturer will get more of a lucrative pilot. But I think pilots need to go to job producers. Now, we have some great projects that have gotten pilots, all right, and I voted against several of them because it was not a fair deal. I don't believe you give 20-year or 15-year pilot deals, for projects that might produce 3 jobs. Because you know what, that small business owner, he's not getting a pilot. He's not being subsidized through tax dollars. Who's helping out the little guy? Who's helping out that middle class man? Who's helping out that small business that's been in Auburn for 30 years? Nobody. Now, this deal here, a lot of people are going to make money. One of the major investors is going to make $1 million because there's a brownfield. All right, we knew this going in. In regards to the point of having pilots come before council, ADA boards have a purpose. They volunteer their time. If council's there rubber stamping it, why would they bother setting the board? Why do you need an ADA board then? Right, it would make no sense.
Auburn needed a jump start. It just needed something, some kind of action. You have local, and I mean local developers that are from Auburn, around this area, not some corporate, not these huge mega corporations that I agree with you, Councilor Smith, there is corporate welfare. But these pilots aren't corporate welfare. They're not. These are people that live down the street from us. And they are ready and willing to jumpstart Auburn. And they have been ready and willing to jumpstart Auburn. But what's happened is that the council seems to be getting in the way of this jumpstart. Like this comprehensive plan that had so much potential has been hindered by political grandstanding and trying to muddle up some of the cooperation and coordination from various groups. So I want to see us finish this plan. I want to see the Schwartz Theater built. I want to see downtown happen. And we're going to need to support all of the progress that is happening rather than getting in the way of the development. This isn't corporate welfare. These are people that are shovel ready to do the work. They've done the research. They're the ones that are making the progress happen in Auburn. and I want to support that. So that is going to bring the jobs in so that we can keep our public safety, we can keep the public safety the way it is, we can keep the public utilities the way they are, we can keep we can improve the public works in our parks. So I want to improve what's happening in Auburn, and we need to support what's happening in downtown so that it will improve the neighborhoods as well.
Thank you. I've tried to follow the pilot issues as they come up with the various projects that have come up in the city. And I know that the debate back and forth, I've heard it. The most recent ones, well, I'm thinking of the Logan Lofts, first of all. That was quite a while ago, but I think of these properties that have asked for pilots, the vacant, dilapidated, they're just a mess. And they're just going to stay a mess unless somebody develops them and turns them into income-producing, tax-based, property tax-paying properties. And they're investing their money, and they're asking the city for help. And yes, it's a pilot, and yes, it's us giving up a little bit to help them develop these properties, but it's a give and take. And the things that have been done, that Logan Lofts has a waiting list. There's a property that's being developed on State Street, residential properties above where the offices are on the State Street Mall. They're, I think, about 75% rented already. I mean, these are people that are renting, and these are going to be property tax paying businesses. Wegmans and Newport pilot programs. So look how wonderful that turned out. Pilots are good for the community. The Newport would be manufacturing and job based. The hotel is more of a service, but they have jobs. Yes, they're not the high paying executive jobs, but they're good jobs. I know a few people that have gotten jobs here, and they're so happy. These are good jobs. So you can't minimize the importance of jobs in this kind of business. I do not agree that these pilots should go through council. There are 2 counselors on the ADA board, and the ADA board is made up of different people from the community strategic.
Great, okay, we're on to our last question here, and why don't we go down the line on this one. We'll start with Councilor Smith, and we'll work our way to Terry Tuddy, and then I'm going to turn the mic back over to Dan Lovell just for a few parting remarks. I'm going to do something dangerous here. On the fly, I'm going to try to combine a couple of questions. The last question that we eliminated from the survey was about the crossing guards. We eliminated it simply because we didn't think we had time to get to it. And then 3 people here tonight asked about the defunding of some crossing guard positions. It's all stated a different way. In the survey, the respondent wanted to know why there wasn't better information given to parents before that decision was made. There's a question about plan to reinstate funding for the crossing guards. There's a question about putting anticipated savings into the budget before completing the proper negotiations, and this question also references the crossing guards. And I'll read this last one, and I'll say that it needs to be acknowledged that the school district is the school district and that that's a separate body. But the question asker here seems to be asking about what is the proper relationship between the council and the district, and how to make that relationship as productive as possible. So the question is, the number one thing young families consider when choosing a place to live is the school district. Most recently, City Council failed to nurture the relationship with the Auburn School District on several issues. How would you, the candidate, change this and establish a partnership to improve the school district and make the community a desirable place to raise a family? So I encourage you to tackle any part of that, whether it's the funding of the school district issue or just in general, even though there really is a division of powers and responsibilities there. Is there room for that kind of relationship building with the school district?
Okay, we'll take a shot. 1 minute? Is this 1 minute or 2 minutes?
Is it 1 minute or 2?
2 minutes, I'm sorry.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, I've had a great relationship with the school district. Okay, I've already had 3 meetings with Connie, the superintendent. I'm right now in the middle of creating a co-op program with the school district, where kids, juniors and seniors in high school can get an internship as part of their school day within City Hall. So, and I've had students from Weedsport do this already in City Hall. So if they want to work in Corporation Council, they can do this. If they get the experience of what real life is like. If they don't show up on time, that affects their grade. I'd love to have someone work with Jenny Haynes in the planning department. Okay, I'd love to have someone work in the engineering department. Okay, Corporation Council, our finance office. This is a co-op program. I've already talked with Tiger about it. I've already talked with the surrounding school districts in the rural areas. This is a program I'm really going to push forward. Okay, this coming fall as they set their school schedules up. So that's one partnership already that I've started. And it's important that we have that partnership. The school district and the city should be working hand in hand on these issues. Okay, we should be working, to Connie's credit, the superintendents of the city school district, their budget closes earlier than ours does. Okay, so the timing's off. Okay, and we need our crossing guards. I voted against cutting the crossing guards. But I'm going to give the police departments a lot of credit for doing what they've done. Kids have been going to school safe. Okay, there is coverage, not the amount as parents we'd like. The one in my corner, where my 2 children live, was cut. Okay, I understand that. But our police chief and our police department have done an excellent job in adjusting to that change, adjusting to the budgetary restraints that we have, okay, without jeopardizing the safety. Folks, we can have a safe city and at the same time an affordable city. That can be done. I don't believe in that negativity. We can still be safe and still be financially secure. The SRO program, I've been in support of the SRO program since I've been on council because I see what these police officers can do and what they can prevent in the school district.
Well, it's my understanding that when the contract for the SRO officers was renegotiated, a contingent from the city went to discuss that matter with the school district, and lo and behold, the city contingent had bad information with regard to the cost, and that affected the reimbursement level. So they weren't using the right number, they were using a lower number than actually is being expended by the city for that program. If they were using the right number, we would have had some extra revenue come to the city, which could have been used to cover the funding of crossing guards. Let me first say, on that issue, I would not have been supportive, I would not support cutting the crossing guards. But there was potential to receive additional revenues to help pay for that, to help offset the cost of that. As far as building relations, I think, I know we, in my capacity as a civil service commissioner, we handle all of the civil service activity for the school district as well as the city. And I think we have a very good relationship in that regard. There's one thing that I would like to address that's not related, and that's a comment that was made by Councilor Smith that the civil service office has been closed for a month. I think it's important to take the time because we have ongoing tests and people are bringing in applications, and I don't want the public to think that the office has been closed. It has not been closed. It's open every day, and we're still open to accept applications for tests. Thank you.
Debbie McCormick.
The crossing guard issue is near and dear to me because I, against the advice of some and with the advice of others, I went and stood with one of the crossing guards at Genesee School just to see firsthand what the impact would be. A crossing guard is in, like a block away. It's a really busy intersection, West Genesee Street. I will note, if anybody hears this, slow down, people. It's like there's a mad rush to get somewhere, and these poor kids in the crossing guard are trying to do their thing in the early morning hours. He was trying to manage the street as well as he could, and I do give credit to the police department for really taking their time and carefully picking the intersections that they cut. And yes, they did cut, and they adjusted, but they didn't have any choice. I mean, there's pretty much, they had to do it. And they did do a good job and did it cooperatively. The school district the relationship with the school district is another damaged relationship. Again, because of planning, poor planning. Their budget was done, we already committed to certain funds for the SRO program, and then at the last minute we pulled it. It's the crossing guards and the SROs, it's another one of those, you know, holding hostage one thing for the other, and it just doesn't bode well for building relationships with other organizations. It's kind of like the cutting crossing guards is kind of like extending parking fees till 9 o'clock. Doesn't make sense. It's not enough to really make an impact on our budget, and it does more harm in the long run than good, as far as people's confidence.
Terry, yes, thank you. Thank you, Debbie. I agree. I think that what happened with the crossing guards was unfortunate because, as was stated, the school district had already come up with its budget, and they were expecting the money to be there. And notice how this was at the heels of a lot of knee-jerk cuts to the fire department. And Doug Selby city manager introduced that budget, first budget in April. It was rejected 3 times. So now here we are in the summer after the school district is, obviously they've already passed their budget. And you have one counselor saying that the school district needs to pony up. Now, why would you use those terms, especially with a school district that is basically, is expecting money from the city? It's in bad taste. It's in poor taste. And I think that what needs to happen is that we need to start working with other government agencies like the school district, like the towns and the counties. And again, I just want to say, with more respect. We can't just use terms like pony up and expect like, oh, I didn't mean that. Those are very, offhanded, tongue-in-cheek words that just shouldn't be said out in a public office, especially during a council meeting. And it's disrespectful to the school district. It's disrespectful to the parents who've already paid the taxes and their property taxes, and it's disrespectful to Auburn in general. And I just want to say that I would never vote to cut those crossing guards, and we should be looking for money in public safety.
Okay, well, thank you everybody so much. I feel like in some ways we just scratched the surface. I think there's so much to talk about, and obviously a more in-depth conversation that could be had. And yet I really want to thank Ignite for providing this forum, which to my understanding is the most in-depth and substantive chance we'll have to discuss these issues or to hear from the candidates in this type of forum before the election. So I've learned a ton. I hope you all have, and thank you very much to the candidates. This was a great experience for me, and I appreciate it. Dan, I turn this back to you.
There is actually a surprise last question. Did you guys enjoy yourselves? No matter what your political leanings are, your convictions, I think one is apparent here is the passion you guys have for our community, and I just want to thank you all for that. So we can give them a round of applause. All of us at Ignite really sincerely appreciate that all of our candidates have come here tonight. We appreciate the help from the Hilton Garden Inn in providing us with this space tonight. I really appreciate everyone here coming. The questions that you guys have asked has been amazing, and your attendance has been really phenomenal, I guess. I mean, it's been a great experience for all of us. This will be broadcast on public access. You see Steve Gage is here, so that will be up. If you guys follow us at our website, ignite-cny.org, you will see, we'll have that video up here shortly. Public access television will also be broadcasting that. The Citizen is also here, and they are filming, so that may be up. Well, when will that be?
It'll be up probably tonight.
Probably
at
tonight.
midnight.
Well, faster than we are, apparently. Thank you. Beat us to the punch. But thank you all for attending. Have a great night. I appreciate your attendance. Thank you.